Now that everybody understands their position, as humanity is now just stuck in the middle of a three-part war, well, four if you count them, everybody decided it wasn't a very good idea to just stay out in the woods. They quickly ran back to the farmer's house. Why his? Well, simple. His was the closest, and they had wounded. They had to get the female inside and taken care of to make sure that she healed up just good. As they headed back towards the farm, every once in a while they could hear or see alien or human craft in the sky. Sometimes just a glimpse, sometimes it would fly overhead, sometimes going so fast that you didn't even realize it was going by until suddenly you could feel the air swish around you. In some cases, the craft was so fast and so low that entire trees stretching 60, 70, or 80 feet into the sky just simply snapped from the air pressure. Those on the ground definitely had to worry because they call them widowmakers for a reason. The farmer took the lead and went to open the door as he yelled at the dogs to wait, the dogs both looking at the tall white holding his female friend there. And they just growled and snarled, not realizing what was going on. Eventually, the farmer opened the door, and before the whites were allowed inside, he brought the dogs over and told the white to kneel down slowly and stick out his hand. The man didn't understand, but he complied, and after a quick sniff and the farmer showed that this was not a threat but instead an ally, the dogs calmed down mostly. They still stared at this one as he walked inside the house. Once inside, the farmer said, "Hey, Lieutenant, do you have any way of contacting your folks?" The pilot turns, "No, I just have an ESET, and that's just to let them know where I am." ESET? What the hell's an ESET? ESAT, I said. It's satellite communication. It's a GPS. "Dude, you turn that off right now," the farmer screamed out. "Why?" "If our people can track it, so can theirs. Turn it the hell off." Immediately, you hear the clicking as the ESAT turns off. The farmer then turns to everybody and says, "Hey, anybody know anything about communications, like shortwave ham radios?" Everyone kind of looked at each other and then focused on one of the young kids. He said, "Yeah, I do, sir, but I don't have my license yet. I don't know if it's legal." "Did I ask you if you have a license?" The farmer screamed at him. "Well, no, sir, but come here." With that, he followed the old man upstairs to an old roll-top desk. He went and opened it up and then plugged in the radio. "I don't know how to use this. This was a gift from an old friend. He had a license. I held on to it because, well, he was a friend. You know what I mean. See if you can get anyone, and I mean anyone, find out anything. We need intelligence right now. We need to find out what in the hell is going on out there." The pilot then turned, who had followed him up, and said, "Who put you in charge?" The farmer turned and glared at him. "If this was one of your fighter aerial battlefields, I would easily stop and say you're in charge, but we're down here on the ground, on my farm. This is my world, so shut up and follow me." As they leave, the young boy starts contacting everyone, trying to get any type of intel he can. Before he even realized what was going on, the farmer actually tossed a notebook at his feet along with a couple of pens. "Use that." They went downstairs and found their tall guy over the top of the female. She was not exactly 100%, even though whatever that medical stuff he used was doing a great job. They were resting on the sofa, and he simply said, "Hey, buddy, grab her, follow me." "But she is safe here. She is comfortable." "She'll be more comfortable over here. Follow me." "Or do I have to have somebody else pick her up?" With that, the tall guy reached under, and with a bit of stress, he lifted her up and slowly walked through each of the doorways that are clearly too small for him. He immediately found himself inside one of the guest rooms and was told to lay the girl down on the bed. With that, the farmer turned to all the ladies that were around and said, "Hey, ladies, can you watch her? Make sure she's okay. We're going to be over here. We need to take care of something, but you got this?" With that, they agreed, as many of the young girls had their own first aid knowledge, and one of them was a retired RN, so that helped a lot. With that, the farmer simply turned to the tall guy, tapped him, and said, "Come on, come with me." With that, they went into the basement, and the farmer began to pull out a whole bunch of maps, many of them simply road atlases, but they laid them out trying to figure out if they could get some sort of picture, an overhead view of everything. Alright, let's get a picture of what is going on, and you need to tell me everything. Hold on, let me grab these. He grabbed some markers, and the tall man began to tell him everything he knew. They began to draw it all down as best they could. Thankfully, the pilot was very good at lining this up, considering part of his job. The lines tend to be very fluent, they found out, until landing craft began to come through. As soon as they heard landing craft, the pilot immediately perked up and said, "Can you get the larger craft through those portals? They seem kind of small." The white simply turned and said, "They assemble in pieces. Once they are actually inside, they assemble themselves on the ground and set up disruptor shielding. Once they do that, they're untouchable by anything we can throw at them." "Well, only your weapons, I'm sure." "What are you referring to? Our weapons are far more advanced." "Yeah, that's your problem." With that, they continued to plan. They had kids running back up and down the stairs, trying to relay intel, anything that they got from the radio down to them, and anything they could tell anybody else back up to anyone listening. As it turns out, there was in fact 3 factions: the whites, the grays, and the lizards. These were the ones who currently held the territory, and everybody was worried. Their tall friend told them that these are the most dangerous, especially when it comes to on the ground. They are very violent and they like none. They only want humans as food and any type of experimentation they can use. This tended to piss everybody off when they started realizing that certain events throughout human history were nothing but tests on the public. This included things like the Black Death. Realizing they had to stop these lizards before they actually made any type of progress. If they got a foothold in, nothing that the military could throw at them would make it through. Reason being, guided munitions short out and energy weapons disperse, causing absolutely no damage when they hit that disruptor field. Yet, there was one thing that still worked: the cell towers. Using a massive text message, they sent a whole bunch of messages out to as many people around town as they could, telling them to get to the farm, and they were fairly vague, but they did leave every message with "Be loaded for bear." The Lizard Forward Operating Base, or FOB, was only 18 miles northeast of the farm as the crow flies, so they came up with a plan. Their mission was to take out the disruptors so that any guided munitions could actually reach their target. There's nothing that a group of farmers had that was as strong as anything the military could throw, so they needed to make sure they had a clear shot. A large group of over 40 men took trucks most of the way in the middle of the night. They tried to keep their low beams on to give as little bit of a footprint, and they found out really quick that it didn't matter really. As it turned out, they were too busy fighting each other, these alien freaks, as they were just simply flying past the convoy of trucks. Once they got more than 90% of the way, they turned off and had to hoof it through the woods. They had to go through without flashlights, just in case, as they didn't want to be seen. Everybody was decked out in a different type of camouflage, as everybody there hunted. Even the school stopped during hunting season, especially the first day. It was considered a reasonable time off for everyone. It was a little past midnight when they finally got eyes on the alien fob. It was lit up like a Christmas tree and hard to miss, but they couldn't just aim from one direction. They split up into different groups and sent out some flares, letting them know what color was going to signify what. But they had to wait till morning when they had the advantage. Attacking at night, the lizards have the advantage for sure. They knew that attacking at night they would be pretty hidden because of their camouflage. However, one thing they definitely had to keep hidden was their tall friend, who was brought along to communicate directly with those on the radio. At this distance, he was only able to communicate directly with one person, not to mention the disruptor field made it difficult for him to actually communicate with everybody. As it turns out, energy is energy, and a disruptor field is designed to do just that. A little bit before dawn, he received a mental message from the farm. He relayed that the military was waiting for the disruptor to go down. They had already lost a lot of munitions trying to fire into it. Even their rapid dragon wasn't doing diddly shit because it shorted out and crashed and just wouldn't even explode. It was pointless to use guided munitions at this point unless they had the disruptor field down. The message sent back was simple. Be ready for it. We're attacking around dawn. After relaying this message, everybody looked at each other and knew things were about to get very, very sporting, and they had to be ready. They all took positions in small groups around the outskirts of the fob. They had all high-powered rifles, as all of them hunted. Yet they were surprised that one of them actually brought a 50 caliber Barrett. Everybody asked, "Why'd you have that?" "In case of aliens, duh." When they got ready, everybody knew what was going to happen. They had already synchronized all their watches, and exactly 0630, everyone fired. The primary target was the disruptor towers, and taking them apart. The secondary target, once the disruptor was down, was any targets of opportunity, and everybody was really chomping at the bit to blow some lizards to pieces. To everyone's absolute shock, after the first volley of shots came out, they saw the tower spark, then fail, then seem to have some sort of inverse flow from the top, and then they seem to explode from the bottom up, making a huge column of fire. With that, the primary mission is achieved, and time for the secondary targets. They began to pick off anything that was not mammalian that came out of that post. They began to take all sorts of shots at the reptile, sometimes blowing an arm off, a hand off, a head clean off, and they could hear some sort of buzzing overhead after 3 or 4 volleys, as each of these high-powered weapons was a bolt action, with the exception of only 2. They looked up and, what is that buzzing? Are we about to see the live leak icon? What the hell's going on? They looked up and they saw drones. Lots and lots of tiny little drones. Over 50 kamikaze drones came in, and they looked like they were on a mission, and they sure were. Everybody looked on in shock as all the drones suddenly seemed to turn in and then charge somehow so much faster, going so fast they almost couldn't see, as each one crashed down in, making lizards absolutely blow up. Small vehicles or anything with light armor simply blow through, and then there was the big ones that came through. The 300s might have been able to take out people, but these 600s, those are designed for tanks. As they saw the explosions go, the farmer simply grabbed the flare gun, reloaded it with a blue flare, and fired it straight up into the air. Everybody knew what that meant. Charge! Everybody ran in with whatever weapons they had, taking pot shots whenever they had to. They followed in as the switchblades crashed in all sorts of different areas to the connected ships. They finally got to the exterior of the ships, and they tried to break into the doors, but they weren't getting through. Not with the weapons they had. Then suddenly the pilot simply said, "I got an idea." He reached around and pulled something off himself, and then suddenly, with a row of clicks, he turned on his ESAT and threw it right on top. With that, he reached over, grabbed the flare gun right out of the belt of the farmer, switched the flare, and popped the yellow straight up in the air, and everybody knew what that meant. Evac, and run. Just run. Don't worry about anything. Just run like hell. They began to run out towards the tree lines as heavy weapons from the National Guard began to fire in. The few tanks that were in range seemed to be arcing their fire over top, trying to hit at least anything. The pilot ran over to them as fast as he could, waving his arms, trying to make sure he didn't get shot. He ran straight towards their commander and Humvee, grabbed his radio, and then called for fire on his ESAT. As the farmer got close, all he could hear is, "Fire for effect! Repeat, repeat, repeat!" And with that, all sorts of artillery began to come down, and everybody could sit and watch as the ship hulls began to buckle under increasingly heavy fire. It seemed like as rounds were coming down, even heavier ordnance began to crash down. Then, before they saw those ships explode from all the damage, they saw saucer-shaped craft coming in to make their appearance. Everyone's heart sank as they saw these saucers begin to spit all sorts of energy weapons down, burning everything, scorching it completely. Many of the hulls of the ships, as they couldn't lift off, simply melted away. Then as soon as they hit the engines, they exploded, causing all sorts of reptilian body parts to go everywhere. Most people ducked, but hell, at this point, the enemy of my enemy. They all know what it means. The saucers continue their advance, that is, until they start taking a whole bunch of fire from all that artillery coming in. They didn't see it coming, as many of this stuff was dumbfired, and wham! They started taking all sorts of hits. Several of the saucers went down, just shaking and then dropping flat at terminal velocity, crushing themselves onto the ground. They began to take a few more shots, and then they figured, fuck it, and ran like hell. One of the saucers was only glancing hit, and everybody thought it would get away as it was smoking, but suddenly it started to wobble real bad, and then it went down spinning. Everybody realized that they need to find this, whatever the hell this was, and ran towards the crash site. By the time anyone got there, they could see that it had crashed and had actually busted open on some shale rock. They could see that many parts were there. Whatever was inside was very, very dead, as no one gets torn apart like that and survives. They did, however, find a single civilian just crawling on the ground. Everybody was like, okay, we need to save this person, but why is this person naked? As they got close, their tall friend finally made his appearance. "No, don't touch it! It's one of them! It's one of them!" He started screaming out through his telepathy. Everybody was confused. One of what? What are you talking about? He started screaming, "They can shapeshift! They can change their appearance to blend in! You didn't know that?" At that point, the one on the ground seemed to look over and was absolutely horrified, and then realized what was going on as that tall white was looking down at it. Suddenly, though it didn't change its human appearance, the eyes turned completely black, and with that, all the weapons were raised at once. Though no one fired, they immediately went to tie it up so they could bring it in for some sort of interrogation. The farmer, confused, "They can shapeshift? You guys can use telepathy? Exactly how far behind the curve are we?" He said this right to his tall friend. His tall buddy turned and simply said, "Get me back to my species, and I will show you." The farmer then turned a little bit more, looking him dead in the eye, said, "Don't forget, you promised to help us communicate the way you do, too." The tall friend simply said, "I assure you, it will all be revealed, though I cannot assure that you will like what you find out." Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you so much for joining me on today's chapter. Before I go, I'd like to send out a special thank you to one of my supporters, and that will be Guardian Sage. Thank you for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, injecting.